In this video, Ask Reddit users tell real stories about the most desperate thing they've done for money. If you enjoy Reddit stories narrated out loud, like and subscribe for daily content. People of Reddit, what's the most desperate thing you've ever done for money? Comment 1. I participated in some market research for a new beer. Sounded great at the time. I get paid to drink beer. Anyway, it was a bunch of different beers in small plastic cups, all of which started out tasting like the strainings of the devil's underpants and progressively got worse. They kept bringing more out until one guy cracked, swiped all his beers off the table and stormed out yelling I wouldn't even give this shit to my dog. I still don't know if it was market research or some bizarre psychological experiment. Comment 2. I participated in a food study where I couldn't eat for a day before, arrived at the lab crazy early in the morning, had a tube put down my throat, and lay there for 6 hours as they pumped liquids into and out of my stomach. After the first 2 hours I begged them to at least turn on the TV, but they would only let me watch PBS so I couldn't accidentally see any commercials about food. It wasn't fun, but the pay was decent and they served me a steak dinner afterward. Comment 3. Once when unemployed, I bought a bunch of king-size candy at Costco and went door to door selling it, saying it was a fundraiser for a church youth group. Made a good profit and was able to pay rent that month. Comment 4. I used to pose naked for art classes while I was an undergrad. Pay was pretty good, about 5 times minimum wage. One grad student who was a good artist but kind of odd asked if I would do a private session of a few hours. I agreed as I was desperate for money. I figured that I had just been hired for sex. I was a bit conflicted, but then just figured why not. I showed up cleaned and prepped and dressed to look good, and it turned out that the artist really did want me to pose. During the whole thing they were polite but very specific on poses, and it was actually a bit challenging. They were so intense. While not particularly good looking, the talent and effort was kind of a turn on. By the end I was half hoping it would turn into sex and they would keep telling me how to pose, what to do, etc. We went over the time, but the artist was nice and grateful and paid extra. So I guess that I learned I would be willing to have sex for money in some situations. Comment 5. Many years ago, when I was a child and my mother and I were facing homelessness, we'd spend the nights at various places, like laundromats or hospitals. One night when we were really hungry, she had me dive into the wishing well to collect quarters to use for the vending machine. It's one of those surreal memories that stuck with me. Reply. I have lots of memories of dumpster diving for presents during the holiday season. At work recently, in an effort to make remote work more bearable, my team asked a question about what is a holiday memory that is most distinct in your mind. So many people had these wonderful memories of playing in the snow or cooking something with their family or going on vacation to this place or that place. So many people had these descriptions of middle-class life because I'm in a white-collar profession that is dominated almost exclusively by middle-class white women. I didn't feel comfortable sharing my experience of digging through dumpsters for toys for my siblings and my parents as a holiday memory. I couldn't share that the most memorable thing that comes to my mind when I think of the holidays is when my family procured a Costco-sized package of breath mints, and we ate those non-stop for 4 weeks until I got an unbearable stomach ache. And what I remember most about that is that I can't eat breath mints anymore because the smell of them makes me sick. But that is not the type of memory one can share with their coworkers if they are middle-class white women and expect to walk out of that transaction the same person. So I don't share that part of myself with people that I spend a good amount of my day with. It's all a long-winded way of saying, thank you for sharing this part of you with strangers on the internet. It feels good to not feel alone. I hope you know that you are not alone also. Comment 6. I worked at a little Hampton Inn. My sister and I had a small apartment, a roof over our heads, but very little food. We would take naps so we didn't have to think about being hungry. I started lifting food from work. A few small danishes, some single-serve cups of peanut butter and jam, the commercial packs of coffee for her. We'd mainly buy bread and eggs. I'm pretty sure the owner was onto me though. He left at 5, either went to dinner or home, then would end up back when I was on shift because he accidentally ordered an extra dinner or his wife made too much chicken and rice or spaghetti. I'd take it home and share. It was just a rough year. My mom visited and was shocked, immediately took us to Costco to stock up. We were still eating off that food a year later. She bought us so much. Nothing fancy, but we felt like royalty with all that food. My definition of success is being able to go to the grocery store and buy whatever I want without counting cost as I shop. Happy to say I am a total success. Edit, yes, minimum wage in 1998. It was market rate for the hotel industry. I moved on to the Marriott at the same wage, and in a year I qualified for reservation coordinator. My new boss blocked me from getting the job at a new residence inn in our area because she needed me and offered me an 11-cent raise. 6 cents now, the other 5 to start in 6 months. And that was the end of my hotel career. Full-time, rented a converted garage apartment. My sister was starting in real estate, so we were living off what I earned. We spent only on necessities. You know, in 98, it was just the way things were. Internet was new, we didn't know it was unfair, and would have been too tired to do anything about it anyway. There's a new awareness now, and we have to stoke it and ride that wave. I really don't know exactly what to do, but let's keep talking and getting pissed. It's the catalyst for change. Comment 7. I was newly broke as a joke and had a date in hours. She wanted to go to Red Lobster. I went through my car, parents' cars, sisters' cars, couches, everything, looking for coins. I had a partially used gift card to somewhere as well. I took it all to the grocery store, cashed in the change, sold the gift card for practically nothing. I had just enough to cover myself. If she expected me to get the bill, I was finished. I'd have to own up to having like $31.25 to my name. Luckily, she didn't. She piped up and split the bill, so now we're married. Reply, does your wife know about this first date money thing? OP reply, she does now. I'm an engineer now and make decent money. She knew I didn't have any money at the time, but probably didn't think it was like $31.25 to my name broke. Comment 8. In university, I signed up as a lab rat for various studies. One involved staying awake for 30 plus hours in a room with no sunlight, communication, or anything else that might give me a sense of time. Among blood and urine tests as well as various probes and monitoring devices, it also involved keeping a thermometer in my ass the entire time. $1,400 is $1,400 though. Comment 9. I was poor growing up. Really poor. One time I collected a bunch of buttons and then hit the street, door to door, trying to sell them for $1 a piece. It took me 3 hours to make $5. I was so excited that I finally had enough money to buy a sugary cereal, Lucky Charms. I went to 7-Eleven, bought a box and got home to eat it, but we didn't have milk so I started to cry. I ended up using water instead. It was very, very pitiful. Fast forward 40 years and now I can buy milk and cereal anytime I want. It's great. I never take it for granted. Comment 10. A few years after high school, one of my HS crushes messaged me on Facebook. I was in between jobs and still living at home. She said she was coming back into town and wanted to hang out. I didn't have any money for a date. I took some rifles that were handed down to me by my family to a pawn shop to sell. They offered me a ridiculously low amount. I felt embarrassed and put on the spot. I wanted the date to happen. Sold the rifles. Next day we got to talking and she apologized and told me we would not be hanging out and that she was going on a date with one of her crushes from high school. Comment 11. I met a complete stranger from the internet to sell him some used underwear. If it were a send it in the mail thing, it wouldn't have been a big deal, but part of it was that he wanted me to meet him to give them to him, and then he would pay me in cash. It was a pretty good amount, so I went for it. We talked for a while beforehand and he was really nice. I didn't get the vibe that I was going to get killed and I needed the money. It was a quick meet in a Walmart parking lot. Nothing really bad happened. Comment 12. I acted in some OnlyFans videos. It was with a girl I had a friends with benefits thing with. I was not comfortable doing it, but I was drowning in debt and my IA had run out, so I agreed. She paid me and we made a video once a week for about 4-5 months. Helped me get out of debt and pay the bills until I found a job. The biggest thing I sacrificed was my self-esteem. A few weeks and she admitted that she asked me because I'm kinda ugly and a little fat, but that just makes me relatable to her fans. It really made me feel disgusting and absolutely destroyed any sort of self-worth I had. Comment 13. Retail security. I had to put up with actual violence. Threats of violence, being shouted at, having hypodermic needles waved in my face, having excrement thrown at me, 15-minute breaks, and being the blame for anything going wrong in the store. The shop staff were the worst. In their eyes, I was the lowest of the low and should know my place. 1 or 2 were okay, but the rest got a kick out of dropping me in it. Say hello to someone when you come into work. Got reported. Didn't say hello the next day to the same person. I got reported for it. The staff thought that they could talk down to me, treat me like shit, and I had to stand there and take it. Help me if I said anything in return. They could threaten me with violence, but if I snapped back, I got reported to my company and the store employee was given counseling. And all I did was tell someone to fuck off after they said that they would, given half a chance. Stab me. That was completely out of the blue. The employee was in an aisle that I was patrolling down and came out with it. They were deadly serious. But telling someone threatening to stab you to fuck off is apparently the worst crime out there, according to that particular store. You couldn't pay me to go back. What's the craziest thing you've done for money? Comment below.